Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We are live. Thank you all for joining me today. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, and make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning as usual and always. So let's get today's show moving and rolling. If you don't mind, I would like to just take a moment to check my sound very quickly. And the sound is great. Let's do this, everybody. Let's get into it. Because today, we have to head back over to Minneapolis, right? We have to head back over there because, the fraud that's happening is out of control. It's out of control, and specifically what we see happening in Minnesota as well. And Ilhan Omar is extremely upset. She's big mad and went on an unhinged rant recently over the fact that people are talking about it. And she's mad that people are talking about it because what we're seeing is that a good deal of this fraud is happening within the Somalian community, right? And here's the thing. If you're talking about isolated incidents here and there of one Somalian man here who did X, Y, and Z as far as taxpayer fraud is concerned, and one here and one there, then there wouldn't be much to talk about, right? And that would be picking on them at that point if you're just bringing out little situations that are isolated. But when you're talking about what is it called, the feeding our future scheme, right? Which we'll get into in a moment. Many of you are aware of it already. At this point, 78 people have gone down, all of them Somalian with the exception of one white woman, right? And then we have this situation here that we'll get into in a little bit. Also, look at this here. First federal charges in connection with housing program prosecutors called riddled with fraud. Once again, it's not just one person, right? It's not just one Somalian man or one Somalian woman. It's a large cluster of 8 men that just went down. So when you're seeing this type of fraud happen on this level, taxpayer fraud, and you're seeing it within the small Somali community in Minnesota, and it's large clusters of them that are participating in this stuff all at once, it is not wrong, it is not racist, nor is it xenophobic to say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on over here? That's kind of interesting that this is something specific that's happening in Minneapolis and with the Somali community there, and where in large clusters they're participating, in this fraud, those who are engaging in criminal activity. It's not to demonize the entire group of people. It's just to point out what's happening and saying, hey, this is happening and it needs to stop. Now, all of this really started here in terms of Ilhan Omar going in on her unhinged rant. And I want to play her rant, obviously, because she had a lot to say, especially calling people like myself, Trump supporters, ignorant people, right? Ignorant people like me. But let's start here, because this is where it all began on Friday, right? When Trump ended the TPS status for Somalis in Minnesota. So what I want to do right now, because a lot of people don't know this, there was a bit of protest that happened. There was a mall over there in Minnesota where you had many in the Somali community that came out and protest and things of that nature. I want to play some of that clip right now so you can see what's going on over there as we allow some more people to come into the live stream. And there was something that was stated in this video clip also that really piqued my attention. Hopefully I remember it when I hear it so I can elaborate on it more. But let's check this clip out next as you all hit the like button. Thank you very much.
Gathered in Minneapolis today to publicly voice their opposition. Fox 9's Leon Purvis joining us tonight from Minneapolis. And Leon, what are they saying about the president's proposal?
Well, Kelsey, many people gathered at Carmel Mall, the heart of the Somali community, to support one another.
Manta, 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 Omali waiting, manta, 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 Omali waiting, manta.
Carmel Mall was packed on the 4th floor with people from the Somali community and people coming out in support. On Friday, President Trump said that he would immediately terminate temporary deportation protections from Somalis living in Minnesota, blaming them for fraud in Minnesota.
We're not here by accident. We're here to stay forever.
There are currently...
That's what stood out to me when he said that. I'm gonna finish playing this clip out what he said, but that stood out to me when he said, we're not here by accident, we're here to stay forever, until Gregory Bavino shows up. 1, 2, Bavino's coming for you. When Gregory Bavino comes up, when Bavino pulls up with the squad, I don't know. I mean, some of you guys will stay, but a lot are going to end up having to leave. Anyways, let's get back into this news clip here.
500 Somalis in Minnesota living with these protections and a total of 700 nationwide. Many expect this to be challenged in court, but in the meantime, Somalis here say they are fearful of what's to come.
People are always going to be fearful, but we're telling our people we're greater than fear. We have resilience. We're people that are brave.
When temporary status is revoked, federal law states it can't take effect earlier than 60 days after publication of that notice, and it has to come from the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem.
What the president is doing is un-American. It's not Minnesotan.
The Protected Status Program for Somalis was launched in 1991 by President George H.W. Bush.
Pause. That's the other thing that stood out too. So this TPS status for Somalians in Minnesota, it started in 1991 with George W. Bush. I thought the T in TPS stood for temporary. I didn't know the T in TPS stood for forever protected status. That's a long time to be on temporary protected status. Once again, is it forever or temporary? That's my question. Maybe you guys could answer and let me know in the comment section or in the live feed. I could have swore it's temporary protection status, not forever protection status. But I digress. Carry on.
It grants protections to eligible people who can't return to their homeland safely due to civil war or natural disasters.
What we decided to do is to bring our community in the heart of in the Somali community here in Minnesota, which is Carmel Mall, to show that, our neighbors are with us, Minnesotans are with us, and we're all together in this fight.
There's no word yet on if or when the removal of temporary status will.
We don't have to listen to the rest of what this guy is talking about. Okay. Let's get back into some other things. So as it pertains to what we're seeing here, right? Look at this. Let me pull this down and I want to pull this article up. And I think what I want to do is come on over to here. Yes. So when the first shoe dropped Friday with this here, Trump saying that he was going to end the TPS status of Somalis in Minnesota, that was also when the second shoe dropped here, when this report came out. I believe it was from the Manhattan Institute, right? And as you can see here, Minnesota taxpayer dollars funneled to Al-Shabaab terror group, report alleges. When both those shoes dropped at the same time, that's what kind of really sent the internet, social media in a frenzy, as well as Ilhan Omar. I covered a bit of this in yesterday's video, but I do want to take a moment to read some of this right here and kind of connect some things that I talked about yesterday with today. So let's go through this article very quickly first till we get to the purple marker that you see here. A new investigation found that Minnesota taxpayer dollars were going far beyond the North Star state's borders and ending up in the hands of Al-Shabaab and an Al-Qaeda linked terror group. Oh, that's horrible. Ryan Thrope and Christopher F. Rufo of the Manhattan Institute uncovered a web of fraud involving Minnesota's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Service program, Feeding Our Future, and other organizations in a bombshell report. Thrope and Rufo noted that in many cases, members of Minnesota's Somali community were perpetuators of fraud. They added that federal counterterrorism sources, and that's important, they added that federal counterterrorism sources confirmed that millions of dollars in stolen funds were sent back to Somalia, which is how Al-Shabaab got the cash. Now, what you see that I have here highlighted in purple, borderline pink, Thrope and Rufo sought to answer a bigger question when looking into the schemes. Where did the money go? And that's the same question that I asked yesterday when I was covering this story here. Look at this concerning the Feeding Our Future fraud, right? 77th defendant charged in feeding our future fraud scheme. Remember, I covered this yesterday, but when you just scroll down here, I want to read that real quick. Remember our man Kamara claimed to have served more than 300,000 meals to children, for which he claimed to be entitled to more than $1 million in federal child nutrition program reimbursement funds. Kamara did not use these funds to purchase food to feed children. Instead, he used the money to fund his lifestyle, pay his credit card bills, and buy a building in North Minneapolis. Kamara wired more than $100,000 in fraud proceeds abroad. Where did he send that money to? And who did he send the money to? Another interesting fact. Oh, I don't have it in front of me right now. And I wish I did. The next time I discuss, stuff of this nature concerning what's happening in Minnesota, which will be very soon, because there's a lot of fraud that I'm actually not going to be able to get to today. I came across an interesting fact. I believe the word is, and excuse me if I'm wrong, I believe it's called remittance. Is that what it's called when people send money overseas? Help me out in the live chat. I believe it's called remittance when you send money overseas. From what I had came across, and I'll pull it up the next time I do a video on this, 40%. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much, Dark Matter. 40% of the Somalian population receives remittance from the United States. Okay. I don't have that in front of me right now for me to show it to you. You're going to have to take my word for it. But you guys know me. I don't come up here and say stuff that isn't true without being able to back it up. 40% of the Somalian population receives remittance from the United States. That is wild. That is wild. Given the fact that Somalia is already a third world country, if that 40% of remittance was snatched away, I mean, the country would collapse even more than it already is. That is crazy. Yeah, Sterling, that's wild when you think about it. That is extremely wild when you think about it. But once again, you got to ask, where is this money going? And $100,000, like I said in the last video yesterday in Somalia, that goes a long way. I would assume 100,000 US cash in Somalia would be the equivalent of being a multimillionaire here. That money goes a very, very, very long way. But now what I want to touch on next, right, is because you know what? Here's what we're going to do. I want to give you guys a quick history lesson, right, in this feeding our future fraud scheme. For those of you who might not be aware of this. So let me pull this video clip first, and then I'm going to pivot over to the next portion of the discussion that I want to speak on concerning these defendants that are charged. But let's take a moment and go down memory lane just to get abreast with what this whole feeding our future fraud scheme actually is. So give me just a moment while I pull that video clip up. If you haven't already, please smash that like button. It's extremely important that you do that. I appreciate it. Follow me on Telegram. That's even more important, at TD Media Group. And subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. And let's get into this video clip next.
$150 million fraud scheme. Already
Let's take it from the top. Visually, I didn't like how that started off for me. It was like moving around and stuff. That stuff like that bothers me. So ready, take two.
A $250 million fraud scheme. Already 77 people, many of them Somali immigrants, have been charged in one of the largest taxpayer-funded scams in U.S. history. Minnesota, home to the largest Somali community in America, has become the center of this massive investigation. This is the Feeding Our Future scandal, a pandemic-era scheme in which defendants allegedly stole over $250 million meant to provide meals for low-income children. Instead of feeding kids, prosecutors say the money went toward luxury homes, high-end cars, jewelry, overseas transfers, and an entire network of shell companies. According to the DOJ, the conspirators submitted fake invoices, fabricated meal counts, and even staged photos to make it look like they were serving millions of meals that never existed. In some cases, they claimed to feed more children than lived in entire neighborhoods. A federal jury found Amy Bach, the founder of Feeding Our Future, and Salim Ahmed Saeed guilty of conspiracy, bribery, wire fraud, money laundering. Federal officials say more arrests may still be coming.
And more arrests did come. They did come because, as you said, as you heard the man said, which was AI, by the way, that wasn't a real person. I know AI when I hear it. Like the AI guy said, 77 people have been charged and arrested. All of them, for the most part, from what I'm aware of, have been found guilty so far. But that was, yesterday's news, right? Because for those of you who don't know, a 78th man has now recently been charged. Yes, number 78 in the feeding our, what's it called? Feeding our future scheme, right? Fraud scheme. Look at this here. Let me pull this down and let me pull up a tweet for you guys really quickly. Allow me just a moment to do that. Look at this here. There goes our man right there. Number 78. All right. Number 78. Breaking. This name is going to be hard to read. I tried practicing before the stream. I just, here we go. Abdirashid Bixi Dul. Abdirashid Bixi Dul just became the 78th person charged in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. Okay. Dul claimed to serve 6,000 meals a day, 7 days a week at one of the meal sites, which is double the number of people who live in the town he was supposedly feeding. How did you do that? How did you feed double the number of people that actually live in your town? You know, like, this is crazy work, man. The fraud is unbelievable, right? And once again, like I stated, I literally could be here. Can I pull this up for a minute? I just want to. Oops. Exactly. Oops. Oopsies. Got a little too overzealous with that one, didn't you? Got a little too overzealous. And like I stated at the top of the stream, I honestly, I could be here for hours going through all of the taxpayer fraud that's going on, within specifically the Somali community. Once again, it's not about being mean and saying, oh, look at them. When you're seeing it on this level, and I keep saying the same thing, and it's not isolated incidents here and there, but it's clusters, it's in groups, it's in mass, going from one fraud to the next fraud to the next fraud. You and I are not wrong to point that out and say, hey, man, what's going on over there? That's a bit fishy, a little interesting if you ask me, right? Because now we can move off of the Feeding Our Future scheme and we can move on over to this right here. Check this article out. Boom. The article I referenced to you guys earlier in the stream. First federal charges. This is just the first wave, okay? More charges are going to come. But first federal charges in connection with housing program prosecutors called riddled with fraud. Let's take a moment to go through this article here, okay? So allow me to scroll down and we're going to bang this article out very quickly. Okay, so check this out. 8 people were charged Thursday in what federal prosecutors are calling a massive scheme to defraud Minnesota's embattled housing stabilization services. To defraud Minnesota's embattled housing stabilization service program of millions of dollars for services they never provided to vulnerable people. In a news conference, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced the first wave, okay, just the first wave, there's more to come, of wire fraud cases connected to what was described as a sprawling plot to defraud the Medicaid benefit program by creating sham housing companies. And I quote, the HSS program is riddled with fraud, said acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson. Many of these companies operated out of dilapidated storefronts or rundown office buildings that were full of other fraudulent healthcare companies. Thompson said the defendants charged Thursday followed a similar pattern by identifying Medicaid eligible individuals, many of whom were exiting drug or alcohol rehab facilities, and signing them up to service housing stabilization. The defendants then billed Medicaid for services they did not provide. The money was just simply stolen, Thompson said. The money stolen among the defendants in the last indictment amounted to more than $10 million, he noted. So once again, whenever you go through this stuff, it's not like little itty bitty petty cash, right? You know, what would be the equivalent kind of to that, right? It's not like we're talking about $10,000 here, $5,000 there, even $20,000 or $50,000. These are multi-million-dollar fraud schemes that are happening, right? Look at this here. I'm just going to read this last paragraph, and then we're going to get into those who are actually charged. The charges are the latest development to rock the program created to find and maintain housing for older adults and people with disabilities, mental illness, and substance abuse disorder. Minnesota was the first state to opt into the Medicaid-funded benefit in 2020. With an estimated annual cost of $2.6 million, according to the Department of Justice. The spending quickly and dramatically surpassed those projections. Are you surprised? Because I'm not. Last year, more than 700 providers received more than $100 million in Medicaid payments, according to the data the DHS provided to the Minnesota Star Tribune. And who are the 8 people that were charged? Let's get into that. Okay, here we go. It's going to be a little bit rough, you know. I'm definitely going to be pronouncing these names wrong, but it must be done. Mukhtar Hassan Adin, 30. Mustafa Daib Ali, 29. Khalid Ahmed Daib, 26. And Abiditaf, what? Abidita Muhammad, 27, each of whom pocketed between $300,000 to $400,000 after enrolling Aiden's company, Brilliant Mind Services LLC, into the HSS program. All right. Christopher Adisoji Falad, 62. Emmanuel Aluduamilad Falad, 32, ran Falad Care Inc. as a father-son duo. Oh, they're spending father-son time together. Okay, that's nice. As a father-son duo, and claimed to have provided $2.2 million in services. All right, we're almost done, guys. I know this is painful. We're almost done. We have some things never change. If you've been subscribed to this channel for like quite a long time, that the loud obnoxious like motorcycle noises, that has not changed here at all. Always in the middle of a live stream. Unbelievable. Anyways, Assad Ahmed Ado, 26, owned Leo Human Services LLC that prosecutors said received $2.7 million in program funds through fraudulent claims. And then we'll end it off and, you know, I'll stop the pain here. Anwar Ahmed Ado, 25, owned Liberty Plus LLC that received $1.2 million in Medicaid dollars in fraud proceeds, right? In fraud proceeds. So now that we got the hard part out of the way, let's get into, kind of the fun part. Because we get to listen to Ilhan Omar's unhinged rant. She's really upset that all this is coming out, and I don't know why you would be. Why would you be upset that these things are coming to light, and that people are being held accountable, and that possible connections, I don't know this stuff to be a fact. It's all alleged at this point still, but it's worth looking into. But it seems possible that some of this money and fraud is being sent abroad to what are the names again? Al-Shabaab, right? The terror organization in Somalia, Al-Shabaab. So this stuff is worth looking into, and I don't see why Ilhan Omar is so pissed off. But let's get into this rant right now. So this is the first clip I want to play for you guys here, and let's hear what she had to say.
Because if you believe in law and order, you understand that if a person...
Stop. That's hilarious, because if you believe in law and order, you started that off with just comedy. You definitely don't believe in law and order, Miss Omar, at all whatsoever. You wouldn't be mad about everything that's being discussed right now. She said, if you believe in law and order, well, I do. You clearly don't. Anyways, we'll take it from the top. Carry on, Omar.
Because if you believe in law and order, you understand that if a person commits a crime, they face justice. And that you don't put that crime on a whole community. What we also know is that there is not a single evidence that the president or his coonies have put forth that there are any single resource from taxpayers in Minnesota that has gone to aid and abate terrorism.
President Trump hasn't said anything of the sort, right? Maybe his coonies did, whatever that is, his coonies. But Trump hasn't said anything. So you're trying to tie Trump up into something that he hasn't even been talking about, right? So Trump never said anything of the sort concerning, fraud, this money going overseas and, going to fund terrorism. That's not what he said, But nice try, though. Nice try. Once again, maybe his coonies did, but not Trump. Trump didn't say that. He didn't do that.
That language is dangerous. That language puts the lives of Somalis, not only in Minnesota, but across the country, in danger.
I genuinely don't want to interrupt as much as I'm doing, but it drives me crazy. So your open border policies didn't put American citizens in danger, because it did. I can sit here right now and list off all of the bodies, all the lives that were lost, not just simply by illegal immigrants in general, but specifically by those who came in under the Biden-Harris migrant crisis. I could list off the names right now, body after body after body after body, not just those who were assaulted, not just those who were robbed, not just those who were violated, the women and children that were violated. As I like to say, violated means RAPE. No, I can list off bodies, people who should still be alive, but that are not alive right now because of your open border policies. It's amazing how they'll sit there and say, your words are harming people, but their actions are the ones that leads to a body count piling up. But my words are hurting people. Unbelievable. I mean, just love to be a victim.
And if the president believed that and he had evidence, he would take people to court. So we are sick and tired of the president waking up one day and deciding to put forth falsehoods and demonize whole communities, while the ignorant people that support him then take the lies that he's spreading and use it as a fact.
What did she say? The ignorant people that support him? I'll be right back. Let's carry on.
Seen it during the campaign where he said Asians were eating cats and dogs. We've seen his vice president repeat those lies. We've seen the media run it as a headline as if it was a fact. That is shameful. That is shameful. That is ignorant. It makes us look like a stupid nation that does not believe in truth but traffics in lies. It makes the world mock us, and we are better than that. We are better than that as Americans.
The world was mocking us when Biden was in charge. That's when we were being mocked. Okay. When Biden was in charge was when we were being mocked. I see a whole lot of fear going on and a lot of people, making sure to not act up now that Trump is in office. Okay. That's what I see. That's what I see. All right. And nobody's telling any lies, right? Allegations aren't lies, especially when they're being followed up, with proof. You have a whole report that came out about it. I mean, where's your counter report that says that this stuff is fake? You can't produce it, right? So who's engaging in lies? This entire time that I've been talking, where were the lies? All the information that I've presented to you have been public. It's public. It's out there in the open. People have been charged. They have been found guilty. All right. So, I mean, she's just crying like a baby crying victim because, the truth is being exposed and she doesn't like that. She doesn't want that to happen. Let me pull this up for you guys here in closing. I want to play this one more time, though. Let me play this part. Hold on just a second.
So we are sick and tired of the president waking up one day and deciding to put forth falsehoods and demonize whole communities while the ignorant people that support him then take the lies that he's spreading and use it as a fact.
I didn't engage in any lies. Everything is public information, But shout out to this hat, you gotta love it, So we have to get out of here, but I have to head on out of here. I have to head on out of here. But I want to play this one last clip next. I just found this really interesting when she made this point here, right? So let's check this out before we head on out of here.
Somalis are not terrorizing this nation. We are helping it thrive. Somalis have always seen themselves as a fabric of this nation. So not only are we not going anywhere.
First off, I'm going to let her finish. Well, let me let her finish.
Not only are we not going anywhere, we are not going to allow anybody to make us feel less Minnesotan or less American.
This is what I find really interesting. She said that Somalians are like the fabric of this nation. I always find it interesting, like when people who got here yesterday automatically lay claim to 249 years of American history. That's wild to me. Like that stood out like crazy to me when she said that. I was like, really? Let's hear it again.
Somalis are not terrorizing this nation. We are helping it thrive. Somalis have always seen themselves as a fabric of this nation. So now,
how you just got here? I mean, if we're going based off of the facts, because we've only been engaging, in all public information, right? That's out there. That's all we've been doing. I mean, you just got here in 1991 via George W. Bush. That's not even 50 years. Not even half a century. How can you be, embedded in the fabric of the nation? You haven't even been here like half a century. You just got here. I just find that interesting when people do that, because you want to say that half-heartedly when it looks like, Gregory Bovino and the squad are going to show up. But then you'll say that while waving foreign flags. That's what's just wild to me. While waving foreign flags, you'll say that. But you'll only say that because the squad is probably going to show up pretty soon. Not AOC's squad, but Gregory Bovino's squad. And when Gregory Bovino's squad shows up to Minnesota, now all of a sudden you're embedded in the fabric of this nation, while at the same time waving foreign flags. The contradiction is crazy. The hypocrisy is out of control. And the corruption is deep. And with all that being said, there's so much that I wish I can get to right now. I don't have any more time. I'm out of time. But I'm sure you guys are going to come across this stuff online anyways before I even get to it, because I'm not going to have time to get to it today. But as far as the feeding, I'll just tell you what it is now, and hopefully I'll be able to get to it maybe later on today or sometime tomorrow. But as far as the feeding our future fraud scam is concerned, one of the guys who was found guilty of stealing $7.7 million, he just got off. All of a sudden, a judge decided to turn that charge over. The jury already found him guilty. They found him guilty already. They said, you did this. And the judge turned around and said, no, the jury got it wrong, and overturned it. Obviously, he was, liberal activist judge. But that's crazy. Like I said, I don't have time to cover that right now because I genuinely have to. Wow, I really, really have to go. I have a doctor's appointment. I got to take my son to the doctor. Anyways, I wish I could cover that right now, but I can't. A lot of other people are covering it already, so you'll I'm sure you'll come across it on your own. With the exception, minus me or whatever. And with all that being said, I got to get out of here. I got to take my son to his doctor's appointment. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Please do that for me. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Please do that for me. And most importantly, please make sure that you're following me on Telegram so you get all the notifications whenever they come through. That is extremely important as well. Thank you guys for your time. Hopefully you guys were informed and somewhat entertained. I will catch you guys next time. Peace. Have a great afternoon and a safe one.